Hey guys, so have you ever traveled to a country and wonder what are the do's and don'ts of a country? Well, it is very important for you to do that before you travel.
Because of course you want to avoid going through shaming situations. So today we are going to discuss the protocol and diplomacy and India. Let's find India on the map right here. India. So as you can see, India is located in Asia.
India's protocol and diplomacy. How can we be diplomatic in India? Before we start, we need to discuss some of the facts of India. So, India is the 7th largest country in the world and is the second most populous. There are over 1.2 billion people there. Yep. Still, there are other 1,500 languages spoken across the whole country. Because there is a lot of different languages in India, it is very encourageable that before you go there, you go online and you look up some words such as like hi, thank you, please. Because especially when you're trying to be diplomatic, learning a little bit of the local language, it shows that you're interested on the culture, or if you're going there for business, it shows that you're not only there just for the money, but you actually care about the people, their customs, their culture. Many of India's protocols comes from the caste system, so it is very important to understand their background. As you can see in the picture, on the top of the caste system, there were the priests and the scholars. Secondly, after that, there are the kings, the rulers, the soldiers, the warriors. And then right underneath that, there were the merchants and the professionals. Underneath, there is the laborers and the servants. And lastly, on the last layer, which often is not even included, are the Dalits or the untouchables. These are mostly homeless people who cleans the street and who, are considered unclean. The most practiced religion in India is Hinduism. More than 80% of the population practice this religion. Other minority groups include Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, Buddhism, and many others. Okay, so there has been a lot of religious persecution towards Christian in India, where a lot of churches has been bombed. You're not allowed to really preach your religion in public. There's just a lot going on. So I read an article and it said that we should pray for them. Since 80% of the population of India are Hindus, religion can have a very great effect in their culture and in many things that they do. For example, the head is considered sacred, books are considered sacred, the left hand is considered unclean. Whenever you're going to greet someone, never use your left hand, always use your right hand. Because again, unclean, clean. Always remember that. Even handling things, like everything, like never use your left hand. Handshakes are the general form of greeting and business. It is not usual for men to handshake women unless the woman gives you the hand first. Instead, it is more respectful to say namaste. Namaste. Now, when greeting in a group, you cannot just go and say hi everyone as we do here in America. Instead, you should go to each person and say namaste or a handshake, and you should always start with the older person because of the influence of the caste system, First older.
So how are you?
Okay. Hey everyone! Namaste.
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 Titles are very important in India, so make sure that you address them by their last name. The only circumstance that you're not gonna address them by their last name is if they tell you that you can call them their given name. Namaste, Daniel. How are you?
Namaste, Mrs. Shaw.
Namaste, Mr. Smith. How are you?
Don't need to call me Mr. Smith. Call me Daniel.
Aw, okay, Daniel. Thank you so much. Okay, so another thing that you should not do is whenever you're talking to someone and the person is speaking, avoid aggressive postures such as...
Oh, Really?
Or even, you know when you're like this and you have your feet pointing towards the person, don't do that because this is considered an insult.
Tickling your ears, and also don't put your hands on other people's head because it's considered sensitive.
In India, the feet is considered unclean, so make sure you don't put your feet on the table, don't step on other people's feet, and make sure that always before entering a house or a store, leave your shoes outside. In Hindu religion, books are considered sacred, so always watch your step and make sure you're not stepping in books. Because of course, we want to be as diplomatic as we can. Over there, the feet is considered sacred, and sometimes unclean, so make sure you don't touch, and if you do,
I'm sorry.
you touching your head is a way
I'm
to
sorry.
apologize.
I'm sorry.
What? Yes, of course I remember. Just a moment, I'll call him.
Sorry.
You can also
Again.
apologize by putting your hand over your
sorry.
face.
I'm sorry. Hindus believe your feet are sacred.
Uh-huh.
Christians, okay, when you go tie a person's shoelace,
But
No.
tell me
exactly.
while
You don't go.
do this.
You want them to put their feet up on something, right?
Yeah.
It's common sense. When you put when you're kneeling down to a person, you feel like you're asleep. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Now, before you enter someone's home or even a
Store, make sure you take your shoes off because again, it's dirty. So over there, you usually take your shoes off. People actually also take their shoes off if they're going to temples or like churches. If you get there, you see all their shoes outside. I think that's mostly from the Muslim influence over there. Of course, make sure that if you were wearing a sneaker, you were wearing a sock, okay? And also make sure your socks don't have holes because they will look at it. I mean, it's not like they're going to actually get your socks, but they can see it and it's undiplomatic.
So, and again, with the store thing, always just check if there are other shoes outside, because if there are, that means that you should leave yours also. If not, that usually means that you don't have to take it off.
I'll call you back. Hey, so who's the special guest?
Pointing at people can be considered very rude.
Don't do that. Hey, where's the restroom?
Oh, it's that way.
Alright.
Instead of pointing, you should use your whole hand as on the example. See that I didn't use my finger? Hi guys, is there any water here, please?
Yeah, there is.
Thank you. Whistling, extreme eye contact, or twinkling your eyes should be avoided. Okay, so in India, the proper way of eating is
With your right hand. So the way it is, you use your first 3 fingers and this thumb, and then you grab it and then you eat it. I actually made a video and you see next. When you go to take the food from the bigger plate, you don't use your hand, okay guys? You use a spoon And then you eat with your
Hands when it's in your plate. Like, don't do this before. But sometimes if you really insist in not eating with your hands, sometimes they might have some spoons that they can let you use. Those hosts, they're never supposed to leave your plate empty, so they're always going to be filling your plate. So don't ever refuse it.
That's not diplomatic. Instead, if you don't want it anymore and if you don't want them to keep filling, you just start eating very slow and like don't
Feel obligated to empty your plate. It's okay not to do it. Now, after you eat with your hands, in case you want more, don't touch the spoon again because your hands will be dirty. Instead, wait a server to come and serve you. Sharing food is a very common thing in India, but you should never touch someone's plate, without asking, or like drinking from their glass, because that is considered something very offensive. Another thing that I found very interesting and very different from America is that showing too much appreciation can be considered something overly formal, so you shouldn't. Instead of saying, "Thank you so much for having me over and cooking for me," you should say, "I really enjoy the food and spending time with you." Polite can be viewed as sign of weakness in India. For example, even when you're in the street and a vendor comes to you and offers to sell you something, you
should say no. You cannot say thank you, because if you say thank you, they're going to still continue. They can be very persistent.
Okay, so now let's talk about marriage.
Arranged marriage are very common. Usually their parents are the one who... Fun fact is that India has a very low divorce rate because marriage is taken very seriously. So low chances of getting divorced, which is good. In America, holding hands is not a problem. Hugging, sometimes even kissing in public is not that much of a problem. But in India it is and can be considered, very... So make sure you don't hold hands in public, don't hug in public, don't kiss in public, because they're even moral policy that works, and some people can even get arrested. Of course, they're not gonna arrest you, since if you're watching this video, you're probably a foreigner who wants to go there.
But it's better not to do it, so you can seem more diplomatic and do this mostly when you're in private. Okay, now let's talk about business. So if you're wondering what should you wear, men should wear suits and ties. Women should wear conservative pantsuits, long skirts, or dresses. Please do not wear tight or revealing clothing. To be decent, cover your legs. You won't see a well-dressed man wearing shorts, nor a woman wearing a skirt above the ankles. In the business culture, you should always schedule your meetings for no earlier than mid-morning, which is 10 a.m. Expect people to be late, but try not to be late, because since you're a foreigner, they might expect you to be on time. It is common to exchange business cards on the first meeting, and it's okay if they are in English. And you should also avoid touching other than the initial handshake, because this is considered rude. Also, be prepared to reschedule, because Indians at the end, they might not show up. When hosting parties and events, 1. Expect guests
to be 15 to 30 minutes late, and there's the video for it.
So, who's coming in the party?
Oh, just John. He's the only one who I invited.
Oh, alright.
So, how's the preparations? Alright?
The preparations are good, yeah. Hey, so it's interesting that they arrived early today.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. It's because since I knew we would start at 7, I just told them to arrive here at 6:30. That way they will all arrive at 7.
Yeah.
Since you're always late.
Yeah.
Expect guests of guests. So don't expect the person to come by itself, but they'll probably bring their assistant, their friends of friends to a party. So make sure you always have enough food for the whole person, because you don't want to, go through embarrassment.
To be polite, you should call guests before the date to confirm their presence. Now, on the other hand, when you are going to parties and social events, one, you should never flatly refuse an invitation.
Hey, I have a party at my house. Do you want to come?
Sorry, I can't.
I'm having a party at my house. You want to come?
Oh, Mr. Smith, I will try, okay? Maybe. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Hey, so Mrs. Xia is coming?
She said maybe, so probably not.
Second, business can be discussed during meals, so allow your host to initiate the business conversation. 3. Spouses are often included in social and business functions. 4. Most Muslims and Hindus don't consume alcohol, so you usually don't need to have alcohol there. Well, in America, it's very normal to have. 5. Again, the same way, you should arrive 15 to 30 minutes later than the stated time, because if you don't want to be the only one at the party. 6. At social gatherings, a garland of flowers is often placed around the guest's neck. Remove it after a few minutes and carry it in your hand to show humility. And 7, hosts shall pay for guests in a restaurant, so in case you invited someone to go eat with you, make sure you pay for them. And 8, you shall reciprocate invitations with a meal of comparable value. Don't ever give a meal with a higher price than the one that they gave you, because it's considered like the person can get embarrassed, I only gave this to the person, now look what they gave me way more, like what am I gonna do? And you don't want them to go through that. So
Okay, so how do you negotiate in India? So you should always start your discussions by asking of the person's family, interests, hobbies, and etc. Don't ever start by saying, hey, so what about the deal? Is it done? Because again, they go round and round and round, and they can take long business here. So make sure you first start showing interest in them and not just what they can give you.
don't get frustrated with the delay. Plan on several visits before you reach an agreement. Business is slow and difficult in India, so be polite but be persistent. Do not get angry if you are told something can't be done. Instead, restate your request firmly but with a smile. So if they say no, we can do this, then you're like, can we do this please? And then if they say no, you say, can we do this please? Now, don't refuse snacks or treats, and in case you don't want to eat it, just take longer to eat it or drink it so it's not refilled. So you just say, oh yes, of course I love to eat. Just kidding, don't lie. But then you drink, and then 7 hours later, you'll be drinking. Now for understanding yes and no's. The Western side to say it hand wave hello often means go away, The hand and arms wave up and down, that Western goodbye often means come here, So don't do it either unless, if you do this and the person comes next to you, don't get afraid. That's what it means.
Okay, now what about the gifts? So whenever you're exchanging gifts, you should use both hands to handle them. Gifts are not normally open in the presence of the giver, so make sure you don't do that either when you receive a gift. Gifts from your country are appreciated, such as perfume, chocolate, small china or crystal objects. China. Gifts are not normally expected at the first meeting. Gifts may be given once a relationship develops. Say or not to say. You should avoid touchy or taboo subjects such as India's poverty, the caste systems, immigration, and any difficult areas in international relations. Talk about sports, particularly cricket, or to ask them questions about their country. And don't be surprised or offended if someone asks you how much you own or like other intimate questions, because that's normal. In case you don't want to respond, don't just give them a vague answer. On the other hand, you can feel free to ask the same question in return. So lastly, we should always remember to never judge the whole country. India can be very diverse because there's a lot of people there and it's a very huge country. So it's mostly divided between the urban areas and the rural areas. The rural areas tends to be more conservative, where with most of the influence of the caste system. So that's where these rules, these protocols are more strict. The urban area are more like secularized. So you probably are not going to have these problems, and you're probably not going to have to follow all these rules. But in case you do get in touch with more traditional families, it's better to do so. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope that this helped, and I hope that now you know a little bit more about India's protocol, what to do and what not to do, and how to be more diplomatic in India. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.